Ladies and gentlemen, live from the West Bank of the Flats, it's Cleveland Sports 360. Today on the Cleveland Sports 360, Sports Time Ohio play-by-play announcer, Mr. Matt Underwood. So with no further ado, ladies and gentlemen, LG.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Cleveland Sports 360 show, coming at you live each and every Monday night from the West Bank of the Flats. Tonight we're joined by Matt Underwood, play-by-play man for the Cleveland Indians and Sports Time Ohio. Matt just made a trip out to Arizona to watch the Indians doing some spring training. Matt, thank you so much for joining us here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show.
Well, thanks for having me, Larry. It's great to be here back in Cleveland. I know fans are starting to get excited about opening day because it's right around the corner, just about a month away from today. In fact, I think it is. What do we got here, March 3rd?
Yeah.
That's, I can't read.
5th. Today's the 5th.
1 month from today, we'll be opening up right here at Progressive Field.
I tell you, we better bring the tribe. You know, maybe you can talk to him and tell him when you came back we had a little bit of snow today. I remember a couple of years ago on opening day, It was kind of a blizzard, and people were out there in shorts and everything else. I think they should split two spring training games here at the Progressive Field while it's still chilly so they can get used to the temperature, So, Matt, I tell you, really, there is an overwhelm of excitement this year for the Cleveland Indians, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way we were winning in the first half of last season until the injuries started setting in. I hear there was a buzz happening in Goodyear this year that these guys weren't seeing in the previous years. Can you shed some light on that?
Well, definitely there was a lot of optimism in Goodyear, Arizona. This is a club that, because of that 30-15 start, because of the fact that they were in first place for most of last season until the injuries really crippled the team and took away any legitimate shot they had of maintaining their hold on first and staying with Detroit. But I think people recognize that there is talent here, that last year was not a fluke, and that if they can keep these guys healthy, keep them on the field, that they've got a legitimate shot to hang in there. And now with the news of an additional playoff spot up for grabs, even though if you win that wild card position, it only guarantees you a one-game playoff, but still it's something else to shoot for. And so I think that's positive. It's a good first step for baseball in terms of adding to the playoff format. But, yeah, there definitely not only was there a buzz, Larry, but what I noticed was, this is a team now that this group was together for last year. A lot of these guys have been together for a couple of years. So there's a lot of really good chemistry in the clubhouse. I remember 3 years ago going to spring training with Manny Acton, his first team, and literally it was like the first day of school every day at spring training. You had guys kind of looking around the locker room. They didn't know each other. They'd come from different organizations via trade. Some of the guys had come up through the system. But, there was just, I wouldn't call it an uneasiness, but there wasn't a familiarity among the players. Now that's all gone. All those barriers are broken down. It's a really close-knit group. And now even the new guys that have come into the mix, like Derek Lowe, and they fit right in.
And so, Derek had a hell of a day today. He went 2 scoreless innings for the Tribe.
I think he's going to be a very good addition to this team. Last year snapped his string of 9 consecutive seasons of double-digit wins, and the only reason he had that streak snapped is because he had a miserable September. He had 9 wins going into the month of September, and then went 0-5. And I asked him about that, and he said, it just plain and simply, I didn't pitch well. He said, I didn't make good pitches, I didn't execute well, and so he took the full responsibility for that. The good news is that it wasn't injury-related. It wasn't because he broke down. And this is a guy who, has always been healthy. He always takes the ball every 5 days. He's not a guy who's really ever spent any time on the DL. So, and you're not counting on him to lead the rotation. You're not counting on Derek Lowe to be the ace of the staff. You just want him to fit in somewhere in the middle of that rotation. And with his experience and leadership, I think he's going to be a huge addition.
Hey, I think we have somebody on our Rush for a Cause phone line. Rush for a Cause, by the way, a new sponsor to Streaming Sports Talk and Cleveland Sports 360. We'll fill you in a little bit later on Rush for a Cause, but what a worthy cause that is. Hello, caller. You there?
Yeah, Larry, how you doing?
Fantastic.
Bob Bauer?
Hey, Bob, all the way from Florida. How you doing, Bob Bauer?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to see you got one of the better play-by-play guys sitting next to you here. And I got to tell you, Matt, it's a real pleasure. I watch all the games on MLB.com. And it's a real pleasure to watch you and Rick do your thing because you guys are very professional. I'm not trying to blow smoke up your pant leg or anything, but compared to what I used to have to listen to, because on MLB they used to make you listen to the home field announcers, and there was like a couple out of Chicago. It's really tough to listen to you, but you and Rick are really a class act, and I mean right up there with everybody else in the Major League Baseball. So it's a pleasure. Now I got a question for you. I think, what do you think we're going to see out of Mr. Jimenez this year? I didn't really, I can't judge him on what he did the other day with that bad outing, but he seems very positive. What do you think?
Well, I think the most important thing is that he's healthy coming into spring training. A season ago, he had a groin injury early in spring training. And the one thing you have to know about professional athletes in particular is they're great compensators. So if they have an injury, they'll find a way to compensate so that they can still stay on the field and get the job done. But in doing so and making that slight compensation, it altered his delivery. And he just wasn't as effective. He lost his velocity, which obviously a guy like him, when you can throw it 96-plus miles an hour, that's a big part of his arsenal. When he lost his ability to do that, he became a little more hittable. He didn't have the same kind of bite on his breaking ball, and so his off-speed pitches weren't quite as effective as they normally are. So I think for Jimenez, the number one thing is he's healthy coming into spring training, and I would anticipate this guy to have a good year. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be another Cy Young candidate type season. I don't think we need that necessarily from him, but what we need him to do is keep you in games, give you an opportunity to win. There were too many times when he started for us last year where, you know, by the fourth and fifth inning, he was already 100 pitches, and he, kind of took himself out of the equation. So I would expect, here's a guy who wants to go out and prove to people that he is still legitimate. He's still the guy, because he's heard the whispers. He's read where people have written him off, saying that he'll never be as good as he was in Colorado. He doesn't buy that, and I'm excited because he's motivated to show people he is still one of the best pitchers in the game.
Not only that, man, I got to tell you, and Bob. The other day, he threw 37 pitches, Bob, and 26 of them were for strikes. That's number one. Number two, he is one hell of a nice guy, because I converse with Jimenez a little bit back and forth on Twitter, if you could believe it or not. And I remember I said, Baldo, you have your bags packed? He says, yeah, I have two done, one to go. So he's a nice guy, too, Bob. We're pulling for him, man.
That's right. Well, I am too. It was a pretty wild trade, and the people that I read all the time are, upset about his non-performance, and that was what you told me right then. That was really good information. I expect that they're going to treat him, kind of bring him back up easily, and not try to have him throw so many innings this year.
Well, I think with Jimenez, again, if he's healthy and he's going to go out there and take the ball, you're not going to have to worry about, treating him with kid gloves, because he's shown historically that he can throw a lot of pitches. He can go deep into games. The key for him, as Larry just pointed out, is being able to throw strikes. Last year, he threw a lot of pitches because he wasn't in the strike zone, and that's how you build up a pitch count. That's how you get pitchers out of games. If he's pounding the strike zone, he's going to force hitters to try and swing the bat, put the ball in play. The other day there were a couple of errors. I think there were 3 errors defensively behind him in the game, and so those kind of things are expected early in spring training. You're going to see some sloppy play. If he's making hitters put the ball in play, then he's going to be a very good pitcher, and I think the Indians will play well behind him defensively this year, too.
Now, Bob, how do you feel about the new first baseman we took from your Tampa Bay team?
They were sorry to see that happen. That team just loaded with talent, and they were sorry to see him go. But then, they're bringing in people too. They think they have a shot at the series this year. They've got tremendous pitching.
Yep.
So yeah, you're going to lose a guy like that. But it's I'm glad that we were able to pick him up. We needed his steady, especially his defense at first is absolutely stellar, and he's a steady bat. He had a real good year last year. We just hope that he can keep that up. He'll hit for average. He won't hit the big dingers. We're hoping that for a good year out of Shin-Soo Choo. I'm hoping to bring it up on our power. What do you think, Matt, as far as our power numbers this coming year?
Well, I think with Casey Kochman, you hit the nail on the head. He's a wizard defensively, and what you have when you've got a great defensive first baseman, that takes pressure off your third baseman, your shortstop, your second baseman. They don't have to worry about making a perfect throw. They can just wing it over there, and they know he's going to scoop it. He's going to save it. He saves your runs because, he turns those errors into outs, and that's important first and foremost. Offensively, I think if you get the kind of production, as you pointed out, if you get the production that you're looking for from Shin-Soo Choo, from Carlos Santana, from Asdrubal Cabrera, if Jason Kipnis continues to hit like we saw him hit a year ago, then you don't necessarily need Casey Kochman. You don't need a first baseman to mash a lot of home runs. He's a gap-to-gap type hitter. If he can hit you some doubles, and as you said, just hit for a good average, I think he'll be fine at first baseman.
306 last year, right? 306, very respectable.
And Derek Shelton, the hitting coach in Tampa, told me that he worked his tail off to get better and to get back. He had some injury problems before, but he worked his tail off, worked very hard. He's an intelligent guy. His dad's a longtime scout and minor league manager, so he's been around the game his whole life. I think he'll be a nice pickup, and he's another guy I think he just fits right into this clubhouse, and I think they're going to love him.
Anything else, Bob?
No, I just thanks for some time and Matt. I'm hoping for another fun year of listening and watching you and Rick do your thing. And good luck to you, and let's go Indians.
All right, thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the call. All the way from Palm Harbor, Florida, Bob Bauer, big-time Cleveland Indians fan. I'll tell you, getting a compliment on your broadcast from Bob is really something, because he's written some nice editorials, or I should say some not-so-nice editorials about different broadcasters around, and whether it be in the NFL or the major leagues. He's one that calls it like it is, and that's a heck of a compliment.
Well, that's the one thing too is we have fans wherever we go. The Indians have a great following. It doesn't matter what city we're playing in. We see fans, and it doesn't matter what record we have. Obviously, when the team's playing better, you see more Indians fans on the road at the various stadiums. But even when the team's not playing well, you still see the diehards coming out to support the team, and it's great to see Indians fans no matter where we go.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, Matt, I had Vinny Pistano join us here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. And now with Chris Perez going down for, what are we talking, 6 weeks at least?
I don't know. Talking to Chris right after the injury happened, he was cautiously optimistic that he wouldn't be out as long as what they had initially anticipated. And he also said, hey, look, the nice thing is being a reliever, we don't need a lot of time to get ready. Spring training, the length of spring training is for the starting pitchers. And so for Chris, he said, if as long as I'm up on the mound pitching in games the last week of March, I'll get plenty of opportunities and reps to get ready. And he anticipates he'll be ready by opening day. And then reading in the paper, he's talking about trying to get up and pitch, in the bullpen and get back maybe as soon as the end of next week. So I don't anticipate, as long as there are no setbacks with that oblique injury that he had, I don't anticipate him missing any time.
Well, the problem with the oblique is, it's a tender area, and, there's a lot of stress right there when your throwing motion takes over, and especially throwing as hard as Perez does.
Yeah.
Last year he dropped 1 or 2 mile an hour off his fastball, but let's just say that he's not ready and not ready to go. What do you think of Vinny Pistano taking over the closing role for
He's
a while?
closer in waiting. Well, let's just call it like it is. One day he will be closing games in the major
Absolutely.
leagues. He's got I think he has the mentality. Certainly has the stuff. But more importantly, it's that mentality. It's that knowing that once you are handed the ball, it's you or bust. There are no safety nets. There's nobody else in the bullpen. He got a little taste of it last year. I want to say he closed out 1 or 2 games, and
Right.
he said afterwards, he goes, "Whew, I'm glad we still have Chris Perez," because
Right.
it's a little bit of a daunting task when you're not used to it. And look, you go back historically, we've had good relievers in Cleveland, guys who you thought could be closers, and then when given that opportunity, they weren't the same pitcher. It's a different animal when it comes to closing out. Those last 3 outs, as Rick Manning, my partner, always says, they're the hardest outs to get in baseball. And, whatever any statistical gurus want to say about there's no difference between the 7th inning and the 9th inning, those guys have never pitched the 9th inning. It is a different animal. It takes a special mindset to be able to go out there and finish the job, because what happens is anybody can go out there and close when things are going well. But how do you bounce back when you blow one? How do you bounce back when you have an implosion? That's the mark of a good closer. Chris Perez showed last year there will be bumps in the road, but he's always willing to take the ball the next day and go right back at the hitters.
Absolutely. Hey, we got Matt Underwood right here at the Cleveland Sports 360 show. We're going to take a slight commercial break. Remember, if you have questions, you want to call in and talk to Matt, 216-672-4300 is the number. give us a call. We'll be back in about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show. Again, our guest in the house tonight, Matt Underwood, play-by-play Sports Time Ohio broadcaster. They'll be covering 150 Indians games this year. Him and Rick Manny have a lot on their plate. How do you handle all that, Matt?
Well, I've been doing it a long time now. I started doing play-by-play for the Indians back in 2000 on the radio side with Tom Hamilton. And so I did that for 7 years on the radio side, and this will be my 6th year on TV. So I'm used to the grind, and that's what we call it. It's a grind because the great thing about baseball is it's every day.
Absolutely.
You have your occasional off days, but unlike football where you've got a week to recover and get ready for the next game, it's every day. And once you start playing, there's no such thing as 100%. Guys are never 100% healthy. They have to deal with the aches and pains and the bumps and bruises. And, just think about it, folks. You go out and run around for a couple hours every day, you're going to be a little sore, and they've got to suit up and go get them the very next day. There's no time to heal up unless you have a catastrophic injury, which puts you on the DL for a couple of weeks or longer. So, it's admirable to watch these guys go out there and do it every day for 6 months. And so for me as a broadcaster to complain about it falls on deaf ears. But, it's fun. It's a labor of love. Obviously, I enjoy it, and it makes it more fun when the team's in it. So last year was a lot more fun than the season before. 2007 was a fantastic season when they won the division and got into the playoffs, and I'm hopeful that this will be another year like that.
Well, was there any talk when you got to Goodyear, Arizona, and Grady Sizemore came in with a back injury from rehabbing his knee? Was there any talk about getting Rick Manning uniformed up again and trying to get him out there in center field?
No, I was out in a fantasy camp in January, and I saw Rick in action. And the wheels just aren't what they used to be, so I don't think there'll be any chance of him suit. But you know what? Kenny Lofton was in camp as a guest instructor, and he looks like he could still play. Now, granted, it was only a few years ago, remember, in 2007, when he played with the Indians in his last stint, but he still looks like he's in great shape. Now, conversely, Albert Bell stopped by, And he did not look like he could still play. He's obviously, he's put on a few pounds, and he said he has not picked up a bat since his last game that he played in spring training, I think with Baltimore several years ago. And it was nice to see Albert sort of at peace with life, just at peace with where he's at. He's happy, raising his kids at home, and that was good to see.
Kenyon just wrote a nice article about the Indians should do more with Albert Bell.
Well, I think that was a first step, Larry. I think that was I don't know if you want to call it an olive branch, but it was a good first step to see Albert back in the fold and mixing with the players and some of the coaches, and so it'll be a slow process, but I think we'll see. I really believe we will see more with the Indians and Albert Bell.
Now, as far as Grady's injury goes, were you guys shocked to hear this happened, or how did the media respond to
You know
this?
what? I wouldn't say shock. I would say the overwhelming feeling was just sorrow. I mean, boy, this guy just can't seem to catch a break. I mean, he's had 6 surgeries now in the last 3 years. He's had multiple knee surgeries. He had the sports hernia surgery. He had the elbow surgery. Now the back surgery. It just seems like he can't catch a break and can't get himself on the field. If there's a silver lining, is that this happened so early in camp that the feeling is that he'll be back on the field maybe as early as sometime in May, and I think they're really hopeful they'll have him by at least the 1st of June, which would put him on the field for the majority of the season. And so
Absolutely.
I think everybody is pulling for Grady Sizemore. The one thing about him, he's not a guy who's going to linger on the DL. He never milks or nurses an injury. He wants to be out there. He wants to be out there very badly. And I think that's the reason he came back, because I think he felt he owed something to the fans of this city, and he wants to go out and prove that he can still be a very powerful and impact-type player.
I'm sure there was a lot of teams that would have took a Grady Sizemore. But seeing how he's injured now, and we have a healthy Michael Brantley, I think center field's going to be covered relatively well, Matt. What's your feeling on Shelley Duncan? I mean, I like this guy's bat.
Yeah, Shelley Duncan, I think I'll be shocked if Shelley Duncan isn't on this team at the end of spring training. Now, I don't necessarily think that he'll win the everyday starting job in left field, though he could. I think, though, more likely he's an extra outfielder, a guy who can play first base. He can be a right-handed DH at times if need be. And at the very minimum, he's a right-handed bat off the bench late in games. He showed last year he can be an impact guy. He had a terrific month of September. Hit a lot of home runs in the month of September. I think he played an admirable defense in left field.
Absolutely. I thought he was getting better all the time.
He had that one game in Texas where he made some tremendous plays in left field. So, I think there's every reason to believe he'll be part of this club. I just don't think that when it's all said and done, he'll be the starting left fielder. Now, they have a lot of guys to choose from. The good news, when you bring 60 people into camp, which is the biggest number of guys that the Indians have brought into camp since I've been around, they got a lot to choose from, and they'll take this month to look at each and every one of those guys. Now, granted, they're all coming in with some kind of a track record, so they have a preconceived notion of what each and every one of these guys can do. Now they just want to see what they do on the field in March, and that'll sort of be the determining ultimate factor.
I just hate what happened last year, Matt, when we were shorted in the outfield, and there was a couple of days we didn't know who was going to be playing center field or left field or right field. I mean, Chu went down with the rib
We lost
cage.
our whole outfield at one point.
We did. I mean, there was at one point, 2 starters on the team left that
From opening day?
Right.
Yeah.
So I cringe a little bit thinking we already lost Grady, and hopefully he will make it back real quick. Secondly, I love the bat that Shelley Duncan has, but I agree with you. Defensively, he may not be there 100% yet ready for a starting position, although I think he could be. And I really am looking forward to a great productive year from right field from Chu.
Yeah, I think with Shin-Soo Choo, in talking with him last week in Goodyear, he spent 6 weeks this past off season in the military in Korea, in South Korea, and so he did the marches. He did all the stuff that any normal soldier would do.
I think it was up at 4 o'clock or 4:30 every morning over there with a 55-pound backpack on his back.
And
going
15-mile hikes.
Right.
So, he came into camp, he shed some weight. He looks great. He's in terrific physical condition. He's healthy. The injuries from a year ago, you get hit in the hand and you break a bone in your hand. I mean, that's tough. That was certainly unfortunate for him. So, again, I think I would bet on Shu to be a key guy this year. Plus, you can't discount when the DUI occurred a year ago. Imagine what that's like for you and me. Personally, you feel awful. You feel ashamed. You feel embarrassed. He had the weight of his entire country.
Absolutely.
Not just his homies, not just the people you work with, but his entire country looked down upon him.
Well, a lot of people don't realize he helped that country win a gold medal, and he was a national sports hero. Yeah, I think we got another caller, Matt. Hello, are you there?
Hello.
Hello. Who do we have?
Hi, my name is Allie. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. Hey, I have a question for Matt.
Uh-huh.
Matt, I wanted to ask you what you thought about the idea of possibly just adding 2 doubleheader days to the schedule for the regular season. Okay? The season doesn't get any longer. You have as many games as all the owners want us to play. And then because we've done that, we could have at least a 3-game wild card series, which seems so much more fair to me than just a 1-game series.
Well, I think at the end of the day, when the owners and the executives and the Players Association all looked at how they go forward with the new playoff format, they took a lot of factors into account, and I think this is what they came up with was the logical first step. I'm sure they talked about a lot of different factors, but the problem with adding a 3-game series is that all of those teams who have fought for and earned the right to get the number 1 seed and earn home field advantage, now you're asking them to wait 3, probably 4 days because you'd have an off day when that series ends before you start the next round. And I don't think anybody was in favor of, hey, we won 98 games, so we've got the number 1 seed, and now we've got to wait 4 days to wait until we play again in the postseason. We saw several years ago when the Colorado Rockies had to wait, I want to say it was almost a full week to play in the World Series against Boston, and the rust was very evident. They weren't ready to play, and they got swept immediately in that World Series. So I think that was the key factor. Again, this is it's going to be an evolutionary process. I don't think that the 1-game playoff is something we're going to see for 10, 20 years before it changes, but it's a first step into adding another team in the mix. As Chris Antonetti, the Indians general manager, said, if we're the 5th wild card team this year, we're going to be happy, with a 1-game playoff scenario. If we're the first wild card team, we win 93 games and we're in there and we get bounced out by a team that was the other wild card who won 88 games, then you're going to be complaining and you're not going to like the scenario very much. But, again, it's the first step. It's not a perfect scenario. It's not a perfect world, but baseball hasn't been perfect for a long time, so it's always been slow to change, and we'll see how this postseason, this new format plays out.
Might as well join the rest of the world. Nothing's perfect, Matt. Come on, let's be real. Are you still there, Carl? You have anything else?
No, just looking forward to a great season and seeing you, Matt, and you look terrific. I want to say, you look like you're about 25 years old.
I thought he was.
Well, thank you. Very kind to say that.
That explains it.
Well, thank you for calling all the way from Los Angeles. We really appreciate that. Have a great night, okay?
Tribe networks all over the world.
Absolutely. I remember the Indians were, I don't think you can go anywhere they don't recognize Chief Wahoo, man. It was one of the highly sold merchandise.
Yeah, and
items.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I get that question a lot from people. Are they phasing out Chief Wahoo? Are they trying to get rid of Chief Wahoo? And the short answer is no. They've added the Block C hat. They've added the new style Block Indians uniform, but the Chief Wahoo's still on the sleeve. It's still going to be an integral part of the team logo. They're not phasing it out, but they're just adding alternative uniforms like everybody else seems to do, whether it's football, basketball, baseball. It's just it's just something else to add to the mix.
Well, maybe I can ask you this question. I have some pictures in my phone I could show you right now. I'm leaning over the bullpen wall before the game where Jim Thome hit his first home run last year, coming back to the Tribe. I think it was a Saturday night, and I'm asking Joe Smith, hey, and maybe you know the answer to this, Matt. Baseball and statistics. Did you guys win more games with the big C on the hat or the Chief Wahoo? Hey, we're going to get back into that right after this commercial break here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show with our special guest tonight, Sports Time Ohio's play-by-play man for the Cleveland Indians, Matt Underwood, right here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. 1 minute and 30 seconds. We'll be right back. Cleveland Sports 360 show. In the house, we have Matt Underwood. If you have any questions you'd like to ask Matt, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give us a call at 216-672-4300. Matt just came back from spending a week out in Arizona with the Cleveland Indians. Matt, we were just talking a little bit about Grady, when he's going to come back, and some of the people are wondering about different players. What do you know about Fausto Carmona? Is there any kind of a end to this situation?
Well, I was listening to the Indians game today with Tom Hamilton, and he had Chris Antonetti, the Indians general manager, on, and Chris indicated that there could be a resolution in the next couple of weeks to the situation, which, okay, if you look at it on the optimistic side, that means that he could be in camp in 2 weeks. Maybe by the last week of March he could be in camp, and I have to assume that he's been throwing in the Dominican and keeping himself in shape. So, I don't know that coming into camp the last week he would be anywhere ready to start the regular season on time. But optimistically, if that's the case, if he's in camp by the end of March, he'd be available, to the Indians in the relatively very near future. At the other end of the spectrum, the only thing we don't know for sure is when this situation has a resolution, does Major League Baseball issue some sort of sanction after it's all said and done? Do they say, in light of the events that occurred, we're going to place a penalty on you and you're going to have to sit out X number of games? I don't know. There's just a lot to this situation that we don't know for certain. But that was good news hearing from Chris Antonetti that he's anticipating some type of a resolution in the next couple of weeks. So with that in mind, we could definitely see Roberto Hernandez taking the hill for the Tribe once again this year. Because at one point I was kind of the mindset, we might not see him this year.
I didn't think we would at all. I thought for sure that was the end of it.
Yeah. So
now when you talk about the unknown when it comes to Roberto Hernandez or Fausto Carmona, do we know if the new name is going to fit on the back of a Tribe jersey? That could be a sticking point.
Yeah, it's just going to be Hernandez. You'll just see number 55 and Hernandez on the back. And hey, the bottom line is he's had some success. He's also had some unmitigated failures while pitching on the mound. But there's still talent there. It's not like this guy, is just flipping it up there 50 miles an hour and he's getting lit up. He still has a power sinker. He can still throw the ball with a lot of velocity. And I still think he could help this club. And with what they've done to add to the rotation, again, you're not asking him to come back and be the star of the rotation. If he can come back and just help, be one of the cogs in that five-man rotation. Because, hey, at the end of the day, Larry, as we've seen in years past, it's unlikely that your five starters who start the year are the same five that are going to carry you all throughout the season.
People can't appreciate the wear and tear that goes on
you need depth.
The human arm throwing the baseball. And when I had Pastano on a few weeks ago, he assured me nobody in the Cleveland Indians organization was working any harder than Fausto Carmona as far as trying to get himself ready, and he was really looking forward to coming back this season.
It's not for lack of effort. I mean, it's not as though Carmona shows up, with this lackadaisical attitude. He wants it very badly. It's just that when he gets on the mound, when things start to snowball in the wrong direction, he has a tough time channeling his energy and focus on just the task at hand. He tends to worry too much about the runners, the situation, allowing a run to score. If he can just narrow his focus. And in 07, that was the one thing that I noticed. He was just a different guy. He had this laser beam focus, and it carried him all season long.
Hey, let's say we go to our Autism Speaks phone line. We have another caller. Hello, caller. State your name and...
Hey, what's going on, Dingleberry?
Oh, geez, here we go again with this guy. How you doing out there? You got a question you'd like to ask Matt Underwood?
Say that again?
Do you have a question you'd like to ask Matt Underwood?
Yeah, I want to know why everybody's so up on a high horse about getting the guy back in the first place.
Who, Fausto?
What's his name this week?
Roberto Hernandez. Yeah, I don't know that anybody's on their high horse about getting him back. As I just said, you don't need him to come back and be the star of this rotation. He's a guy that can help. He's a guy that can eat up some innings. And again, you're not going to go through a season with just five starting pitchers. You're going to need some depth. You're going to need some help. And if he can be one of those guys that helps you out, then you owe him a lot of money for this season. You're not going to just release him and eat all of that salary. So if he can come back and be a cog in the wheel, if he can help out, then certainly you welcome that.
Is the money guaranteed?
Yes. Yeah, all baseball contracts are guaranteed.
So basically, we couldn't even trade the guy.
Well, certainly you could trade him. That would be a possibility. I don't know what the market would be for a guy like Fausto or Roberto. I'm not privy to the general managers and the conversations they have, but that certainly could be an option. But again, like I said before, you don't want to trade starting pitching if you don't have to, because depth is the one thing every team wants when it comes to starting pitching. You don't want five starters, you want seven, you want eight starters.
These guys are all about character.
About who?
Character. Here's a guy that's been lying about who he is, how old he is, and let's be honest, last year he didn't have such a great year. Actually, last 2 years.
Well, I don't think that had anything to do with his character, caller. I think what happened was he might have been a little bit older than he thought the Major League scouts wanted him to be at the time that he signed a contract. Fausto did have a couple of good years in a Tribe uniform last year. I mean, come on, everybody falls off the bus once in a while.
Let's face it. This wasn't his idea. I don't think he came up with this grand scheme. This was unfortunately, the way things work, a lot of times in the Dominican, it's driven by the agents, it's driven by the people who run the professional baseball in the Dominican Republic, and this was a scenario that was presented to him as, hey, this is your best chance to get a professional contract and make it to the big leagues. And I think, like a lot of kids down there that are very poor, that don't have next week's meal money, I think he jumped.
Why lie about who you are? I mean, I don't understand that. The Dominican.
Well, let's say that's something we may never understand until Hernandez or Carmona or whoever he is can come back, sit down, and get an interview going with somebody where he can tell his side of the story. We're just speculating, and I don't think it's fair right now to sit around and speculate what. One thing I can tell you, I've been to some of these other countries, and when you get off the cruise ship and you start walking towards these gates, and there's guys out there with machine guns, and you look at your fiance and go, maybe we're better off staying in this little area. I don't think it's fair to sit here and go, why did he do it? I think what would be fair is let's wait. If he's going to come back, he's going to do an interview. We're not the only people that want to know this.
He's not the only guy this has ever happened to.
Right.
This is a problem that's happened in the Dominican Republic for years. A lot of it was brought to light back after 9/11 because of the more scrutiny was placed on the birth certificates and the passport documents. But this is a problem that's been going on for years, and it continues to go on in the Dominican Republic. And he's one of many who's been caught up in it.
And I want to say this.
I didn't realize that a lot of these guys come up with false identities.
Yeah.
Well, I actually want to say this. Not only the false identities, there's a problem when these guys are coming into the United States on small ships or cardboard boats. It's an issue. So changing your name is minor compared to how some of these guys get into this country.
Absolutely, and if we want to talk birth certificates, caller, there's a lot of people still questioning our President of the United States birth certificate. And what can I tell you? I think it's gone too far. Now the sheriff in Arizona brought it up last week about Obama.
Sheriff Joe Arpaio?
Right.
That guy's been in office for like 20 years. They keep trying to get rid of him, but they can't. He's like a local legend out there.
I would really like to see Carmona come back and be able to come back and help the tribe in some way, shape, or form. I was down on him a little bit last year, Matt. He didn't have his best performances, especially in Minnesota early on in the year. He got hammered pretty well up there. But I remember down in Texas and stuff, he was really trying hard. You could see that.
Well, at the end of the day, you don't win 19 games by accident.
No.
So 2007 was real. That happened. That was the guy. That ability is in there. He hasn't been able to harness it or get back to it since then, and so that's why it's frustrating, because it's there, but he can't seem to get it out and show it every 5 days. So if he can get back to even close to that form, if he can come back and be a 15-game winner, that would be enormous for this club. Can he do that? I don't know. Will the strain of what he's been through emotionally, will that take its toll on him? We'll have to wait and see. As you said, there are a lot of unanswered questions that that he's going to have to deal with when and if he is reinstated.
I think that's going to be a lot of pressure right there when the press and the media get a hold of Fausto or Hernandez, whatever. I think we have another caller. You there? Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're fantastic. Would you like to talk to Matt Underwood?
Yeah, I just wanted to let him know that I love listening to him on STO.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And as Larry said, we've got 150 games coming up this year, and so we're excited. We're excited to have Indians baseball on Sports Time Ohio, to be the home of the Indians. We just did a daily show all last week from Goodyear, and we're going to televise 6 games beginning on March the 10th, running through March the 21st. And then the last week of March, when all of the final decisions are made, who's the 5th starter, who's the 3rd baseman, who's the 1st baseman, who are the extra 2 spots in the bullpen going to go to, when all those decisions are being made that last week of March, I'll be doing live updates from Goodyear all week long on another edition of Spring Training Daily. So we'll have the whole thing covered for you.
It's going to be fantastic. Thanks for calling. I think we got another call. Hello, caller, you there? Hello? Nope, we don't have another caller. I lied. Anyways, we're sitting here with Matt Underwood. If you do want to call, the number's 216-672-4300. We just touched on the Fausto Carmona. We touched a little bit on Grady's condition. We touched a little bit on Shelley Duncan. Now let's talk about the corners after we come back from this commercial break. We got a lot of guys in camp this year fighting for the corners, which are very important positions. We're going to get into first and third base when we come back with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show after this 1 minute and 30-second break. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cleveland Sports 360 show, the official online broadcasting partner of Rush for a Cause. Hey, check out our website, streamingsportstalk.com, or the clevelandsports360.com website, and get more information on this beautiful organization called Rush for a Cause. This is a 501c3 started by a high school football player, and its main cause in life is to take care of tragically injured high school athletes. You don't necessarily have to be just injured. There's a lot of gymnastics injuries, Matt, as you're probably well aware of. These people fall off these balance beams. You get to a serious neck injury and then paralysis. I mean, Rush for a Cause. Check it out right here on the front page of the streamingsportstalk.com website. We'll be doing a live broadcast showing you a little bit more about Rush for a Cause on August 18th, 2012. And before that, I'm sure I'll have my guest back, one of the board members, Bruce Naga, will be joining me right here on the Cleveland Sports 360 show. We're back live with Matt Underwood, who just came back from Goodyear, Arizona with the Cleveland Indians spring training. I believe we have another caller. Matt, let's go right back to the phone lines. Hello, caller, are you there?
Yeah, what's going on, Uncle Eddie? It's Al.
Hey, Al, how are you, buddy? This is a big-time Indians fan, man.
All right.
Are you at Bowling Green State University, or are you back in the Cleveland area right now?
I'm back in the Cleveland area. I'm back.
Now, this is a guy that's going to school, Matt, to be a sports trainer, right, Al?
Yeah.
So, would you like to talk to Matt Underwood?
Yeah, do you think our bullpen's deep enough to compete with some of the other top contenders?
Well, I tell you what, and I cross my fingers when I say this. Our bullpen is very strong, and the reason I cross my fingers is because year to year, one of the hardest things to predict is how good a bullpen is going to be. For whatever reason, a bullpen might be great one year, and then the next year they're not the same. They're not the same guys. You can't figure it out. So it's difficult to predict. But the one thing I like is that for the most part they're young guys. So you feel like the upside is on their side. You've got a good mix of guys, lefties, righties, different arm angles. I really like this bullpen. I think what they showed a year ago was no fluke, was no mirage. It all starts with having a good closer. Chris Perez is the anchor in the back end of that bullpen. Vinny Pastano and Tony Sipp stepped up last year and really nailed down the setup jobs, which left Rafael Perez and Joe Smith in the sixth and seventh inning roles. Last year Frank Herman was terrific as the long man. He's fighting for that same spot this year, and we'll see how the whole thing shakes out. But I really do like the bullpen. I like the way it stacks up. I like the different arm angles, the different looks that they give you. So I'm hoping that it's still going to be the backbone of this team, because you have to have a great bullpen if you're going to be in the hunt. Because so many games are lost from the seventh inning on if you don't have a bullpen that can lock it down when you give them the lead.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man.
Any other questions, Al?
That's my main question I just wanted to ask.
Now, Al, are you going to play any baseball at Bowling Green, or what? Are you retired?
I don't know. Maybe next year.
Okay.
All right, well, good luck.
Hey, thanks for calling,
thank
buddy.
you.
That's
got
my
it.
nephew, Al. Al Glicken out there, ladies and gentlemen. One time he had 1,000 batting average. I'm not kidding you, man. He never struck out. He never missed. He had 1,000 batting average. And he was a heck of a pitcher, too, and I don't understand. Some of the coaches in different levels get these kids uninterested in following up with their careers.
Well, I mean, the whole idea when it comes to baseball, and I always remember this, Willie Stargell once said, when they start a ball game, they don't say work ball.
Right.
They say play ball.
Right.
And the idea is to have fun and enjoy it. And I just hope that kids don't lose that, because I see there's this sort of movement gathering a lot of momentum. And there's nothing wrong with playing on travel teams, and my son's is going into his first year of travel baseball this year, but too many kids, I think, are maybe pushed a little too hard by parents sometimes to be in these leagues, or pushed by certain coaches, and by the time you play 40, 50 games a summer, by the time you get to high school, they're kind of burnt out.
Right.
And that's a shame, because it is supposed to be fun. It is a game, and you're supposed to enjoy it. And I hope that if the kids out there that are playing it, that they're having fun at the end of the day. Because if you're not, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's the obvious, that how some of these coaches could ruin the fun, and some of the parents take it a little bit too far, too. But, Matt, let's talk a little bit about the corners. We have a pile-up at first base this year, and we have a pile-up, I wouldn't call it necessarily a pile-up, but we know Chisenhall and
Jack
Hanahan
Hanahan,
are fighting over there at third base. Who's going to be the starter?
That's going to go down to the wire. I don't think that decision will be made unless there's an unforeseen injury that pops up. That decision won't be made until the very end of spring training. And the reason for that is that, look, Lonnie Chisenhall he's the third baseman of the future. Okay, he's the guy down the road. Is he the guy right now? That's what they're determining throughout this month of March. Jack Hanahan could be the short-term solution at third base. Allow Lonnie Chisenhall to develop a little bit more at AAA, and then bring him along when he's fully ready. But he might show this spring that he is fully ready. He might show them, hey, I'm ready for this right now. And if that's the case, then they'd have to part ways with Jack Hanahan, because you're not going to keep two third basemen to start the season. So it's going to be one or the other, because Jack's not really a utility guy. He's a third baseman. He's not going to play a bunch of other positions.
He's got a Golden Glove.
And they're both left-handed, too.
Yeah,
left-handed hitters.
Defensively,
Terrific defensively.
Do you think Chisenhall is ready to compete with Hanahan defensively for third base?
No, but you know what? Here's the other thing. The reports that we had on Lonnie Chisenhall last year was that his bat's good, the glove's still a work in progress. But I thought he was fine defensively. He wasn't as flashy as Jack, but by no means did he look like a guy that was going to be a real project defensively at third. I think he'll be fine eventually. So the question this spring will be, is he ready to be the guy right now? And if not, he's got options. You send him to AAA and allow him to continue to work on his game, and you let Jack Hanahan start the season there. If not, if Lonnie's ready right now, then Lonnie's the guy and you move forward. Now, on the other side of the diamond, you talk about first base, Casey Kochman will be the first baseman. The question is, who's his backup and who else makes the club? Because Matt Laporta, they talked about seeing if he could play some left field. I don't necessarily think that's a legitimate option for him. I think, at the end of spring training, he's more likely to be at AAA Columbus playing first base. Russ Kanzler won the AAA MVP last year for Durham. That's the guy you talked about earlier that we got from Tampa Bay. I think Russ Kanzler is a guy who, because he's a right-handed bat with power, he's a good hitter.
We needed a right-handed bat.
Defensively, he's a little iffy right now at first base. He'll continue to work there. He could potentially play some outfield, but that's not his best spot. So He could be a guy that maybe makes this club as an extra guy and a right-handed bat off the bench, but that may be a little bit of a long shot for him as well right now. He could start the year at AAA Columbus, too.
Now, Donald came back to camp this year, and he seems to be relatively healthy, and we have Kipnis over there at second base.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of seeing Donald out in the outfield?
I think so. I think Jason Kipnis is your second baseman, and Jason Donald is fighting for a utility spot. Now, Jason can play shortstop, which is important because if you need a utility guy that can spell as Drupal Cabrera at shortstop, so that certainly helps his cause. If he can play the outfield, legitimately play the outfield, that really helps his cause because right now he's battling Christian Guzman, who's a veteran with a lot of experience who we know can play shortstop, but he can't really play the outfield. So I think what you're looking at with Jason Donald is can he play the outfield well enough to win that utility job? If not, then it's going to come down to him and Christian Guzman, I would expect.
So we really do have a battle there. I mean, we're probably set in stone with Kipnis and as Drupal as the starters in the middle of the field, and then we have third base. It could go either way. I'm leaning towards Jack Hanahan myself. We'll see what Manny Acta thinks about that. And on first base, as you said, we got the new guy, but don't you see Carlos still playing first base?
He will. He'll play some first base, and he will DH occasionally, and that'll give Lou Marson. That'll give Lou Marson some more opportunities to catch because Lou's a fantastic catcher. If his bat finds some life, then obviously he'll get more playing time behind the plate. And with Santana, with the way he swings the bat, you'll find a place, whether it's at first base or DH or behind the plate. You'll find enough at bats for all of those guys.
I'll tell you one thing, not only is Lou a great catcher, I love his arm, Matt. I mean, coming out of the mitt to second base, I think he's probably one of the best in the business right now.
And he's a former quarterback, so he handles the staff well. He really works well with the pitching staff, knows how to attack hitters. He's not unlike a lot of good catchers in that, he's very good defensively. Offensively, he's searching for it, and if he can find it, man, he still has the potential to be a very good major league catcher.
Absolutely, and I really think he's doing a fine job so far, and he's lucky to have a guy like Sandy Alomar. I'm so glad we can say that Alomar is going to be in the dugout this year again. I mean, we came close a couple of times to losing him during the offseason with the Chicago job, and I thought he was going to go
out interviewed east, in Boston, too,
out east into Boston, and one day somebody's going to latch on to Sandy Alomar, but I mean, what a tool to have to train catchers, huh?
Yeah, he's terrific. He works really well with the catchers. He listens to what they're telling them. He imparts some wisdom to them, when they've got questions. And Lou Marson has really done a great job of talking to Sandy and soaking up any knowledge that he can. And the thing to remember with Carlos Santana, he's a converted catcher, so he's still learning a lot about the position. And so that's why at times it's frustrating because, there's a lot of growing pains as far as defensively behind the plate with Carlos and working with those pitchers and sequences and trying to attack hitters. But, he's got to work at it.
Well, they're certainly learning from one of the best in the business.
No
doubt.
We have a Twitter question here. Matt Underwood, let me read it completely so you understand it. Not a politician. I guess they're saying not a political answer. Your feelings on the ownership, the Dolans.
Well, I mean, look, the Dolans have been widely criticized because the perception is that they don't spend enough money. The bottom line is no business owner spends more than they make. Now, they have deficit spent. They have spent more than they've made. They've gone into their own pocket to cover losses. They're not going to make crazy decisions like going out and signing a guy to a $200 million contract and jeopardize the health of the franchise. They're not going to do that. There aren't many, if any, owners that would do that at all. There are a couple of guys. The guy in Detroit, Mike Ilitch, he's got $1 billion empire that he's built. He can afford to make some of those decisions that aren't sound baseball, ownership decisions, but he's got the kind of reserves where he can, write off some of those losses on his personal side. At the end of the day, they spend a ton of money on player development, on draft picks. There aren't many organizations that have outspent the Indians when it comes to the draft in recent years. So they're trying to build it the right way. They're trying to build it from within through the draft by making smart decisions on the personnel side, and that's Chris Antonetti's job. And so at the end of the day, look, it's not easy. You look at any middle market club where the Indians currently reside, it's not easy to be in competition year in and year out. And, 07 was a tremendous season. They thought they had the great team in 08. They brought virtually that entire team back intact. It didn't happen. That wasn't through fault of ownership. It's just on-field performance didn't get it done. And so now they've quickly rebuilt it again, and here we are just a few short years later, ready to contend and hopefully get back into the playoffs. And for that you have to be grateful, because you don't have to look very far down the road in Pittsburgh. It's been since 1992.
Well, there you have it, folks. We're looking to contend this year. It's going to be an exciting year, and we're just about a month away, as Matt stated earlier in the show. We want to thank you for coming down and spending this hour with the Cleveland Sports 360 show, Matt. It's been my pleasure to have you. I've been looking forward to this for a long, long time, and I hope we can invite you back some other time. What do you think?
My pleasure, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Gentlemen,
Good to be
Matt
here.
Underwood, folks. Cleveland Indians, Sports Time, Ohio, play-by-play. We're a month away from opening day. Don't forget to go to Sports Time, Ohio. Catch Matt Underwood and Rick Manning. They'll be broadcasting a few games from Goodyear, Arizona.
Next Saturday, our first game.
What time? Do you have any idea?
It's a 3 o'clock start in Cleveland, so it'll be 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock Cleveland. If you're on the West Coast, it's 1 o'clock in Arizona.
Yep.
Okay, folks, there you have it. We're looking forward to a hell of a year come for the Tribe this season. We're a month away from opening day. Let's hope the weather cooperates. We've had a great winter so far. Don't forget, check out our website, read more about Rush for a Cause, and we'll be back next Monday evening with more of the Cleveland Sports 360 show right here from StreamingSportsTalk.com. Good night, and God bless everyone.